All right, well, this is your host, Scott Roos, and this is Down to the River. And my very special guest today is a man who's very familiar with these parts, given the fact that he was born and raised in Saskatchewan. I have the one and only man, myth, and/or legend himself, Jeffery Straker, piano player extraordinaire, on the line with me today. How are you doing, Jeffery?
I am doing very well. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming down to the river, man. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
So now listen, you kind of dropped on my radar, like, just because of the release of this track. But I mean, you have released a very poignant, perhaps even arguably timely song entitled One Foot on Main Street. And I'll have to say, I really enjoy what I'm hearing here.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to hear. Well, of course, it's just nice to hear someone say that about any song that one makes. But this one in particular is actually a real different kind of direction for me, sonically and probably kind of lyrically. So that's that's good to hear. Thank you very much.
Well, and I know your style has drawn comparisons to quite a lot of piano singer-songwriters in the past, but what I couldn't help, and even hearing some of your other tracks, what I couldn't help thinking of, just listening to your music and living with it a little bit over the last couple of days, is it seems to me that maybe there's a bit of a Bruce Hornsby kind of influence here. Did you grow up listening to his music at all, Jeffery?
You know what's funny? I did. I did, and I would obviously, one never sits around trying to emulate anybody in particular.
Oh, of course,
but I did listen to him, and you're one of the very few listeners who would pick up that influence. So, and I think it's fair, but I've always been surprised that people don't hear it. So hats off to you for noticing that, because that's a rare observation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I know, like, Mandolin Rain, of course, is one of his most famous songs. But I mean, did you have a Bruce Hornsby jam in your youth in particular that sort of struck a chord with you? Pardon the pun.
No, that honestly, that was my door into Bruce Hornsby. So that was always kind of the one. I think that was the one because younger piano players at the time, when trying to play Bruce Hornsby, were trying to play the Mandolin Rain riff, So
Yeah.
that was definitely the one that sort of stuck out.
Now, did he have a song called The Way It Is too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's maybe a little bit more, late 80s. I want to say that's the one that I remember, actually, ironically, more than Mandolin Rain.
Yeah. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. Like, it was a great song. I mean, yeah. I love that stuff.
Well, now, just pivoting a little bit, you mentioned that your approach was a little different on One Foot on Main Street. So, I mean, how did your approach differ on that particular, track compared to some of the other things you've done in the past?
Well, the main thing is sonically, like, through no conscious choice, I've been shifting from more, like, I started out like 11 years ago making my first record, actually more like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was like the first record was quite folky. And then the next one was quite a pop record, like definitely a pop record.
Uh-huh.
But it's been migrating back to folk, and now really into what I would call roots folk now, or maybe even just roots, with this last record. And everything on the record is acoustic. There's no electronic instruments at all.
Nice.
And so it's just kind of become simpler and more organic. And like I said, it's not a conscious choice. It's just the way I think our outputs are some of our inputs. And I've been listening to a lot of folk and roots music and Americana music, and artists like Jason Isbell and Patty Griffin and all these sorts of people. And obviously, so sonically that stuff has sort of seeped into me, but also lyrically, they're very, like, the folk tradition is a story tradition. And so that's always been something I've gravitated to. So this song fits in that sort of sphere.
Yes.
The song, as you said, it's called One Foot on Main Street, is about sort of thinking back to growing up in a small town and sort of realizing how that is a part of you everywhere you go. And I just, with each ticking year, and then in particular this year, with each ticking year we have, reminiscences. And this year my mom passed away in February, and it really sort of put me into this headspace of recalling and reflecting and, thinking back to the things that were, and obviously where I grew up and how I grew up is a big part of that. So that was kind of the catalyst, for the idea in the song, if you will.
Now, you were born in a town called, is it pronounced Puniki, Saskatchewan?
You're you're like you could be any news reporter anywhere in Canada who tries to read it, and that was so wrong.
Well, that's why I
But
that's why I, there was a little disclaimer before I pronounced it.
no, I know I'm kind of making fun of you because everyone screws it up. But it's actually Punashai. Um,
Oh,
and it's a Cree Indian word, and there's a
yeah.
lot of First Nations reserves around Punashai, and
Uh-huh.
it's a Cree Indian word, and it actually means small featherless bird, and there's a long story behind that. But yes, it's a tricky word to pronounce. That is where I'm from.
And it's just a little bit outside of Regina, the Queen City itself.
Yeah, it's like an hour north of Regina.
So now, just give us a little sense of the town of Punashai. I mean, like, now maybe compared to 15, 20 years ago when you would have been spending those formative years there. I mean, is this kind of town going the same way a lot of small towns in Saskatchewan are, like a lot of empty buildings on Main Street now, for a wide variety of
It
reasons?
is. It is. Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I mean, is the way, and I was actually thinking about this as I was driving across Saskatchewan today from Watrous to Landenberg to do,
Oh, there you go.
one show after another as I'm
Yeah,
touring, doing this rural tour right now.
that's right.
And I've drove through past and through all these small towns that are doing exactly what my hometown is doing, which is shrinking.
Yeah.
And as far I guess I've known this, but it really hit me that as farms get bigger, like the family farm is a dead entity. Farms are now corporations and companies, and they're very the amount of land that one farm is huge now, right? There
Yes.
used to be a farm if not every square mile, sometimes every half mile. Therefore, populations were condensed into smaller areas where a town was these small towns were necessary, so close together. But now that a lot of those small farms are gone, people have moved to cities and whatever. Honestly, there isn't a need, quote unquote, for all these little sort of commercial hubs. Like, so in the prairies of Canada, sort of quote unquote larger centers are emerging, like, the
Yeah.
towns of sort of 5,000 people or 6,000 people, where there used to be these towns of 200 and 300 could really thrive. And now they just can't. So it's a funny time, but that also is kind of was part of the impetus of the song, thinking back to like this place that I'm from. I think in my lifetime, I hate to say it, will be a ghost town.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't born and raised in Saskatchewan. I was born and raised in the Greater Vancouver area, but my wife is from a small town just outside of Kindersley called Eston. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah,
sort of blown through that area before.
I have. Yeah, it's near Etonia.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, this is a classic town where, I mean, as I was listening to your track, One Foot on Main Street, I mean, I was almost picturing Eston like there's basically one sort of primary street, and probably on that street there's a co-op, and maybe a barber shop is probably left, and perhaps that one cafe, be it a Chinese cafe or not. And of course,
Hmm.
the one cafe that actually is in Eston is a Chinese cafe. So there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
It's like you were preaching through the airwaves about Eston to me almost.
But the funny thing is, so this tour I'm on right now, this is the first time I've been performing this song live for people, for
Yeah.
like actual audiences, and I'm performing in a lot of rural communities in Saskatchewan. It's the nature of this tour that I'm doing to a lot of arts councils, and so
Yeah.
it's fascinating hearing people in all these small towns that I've kind of never visited before saying this is about my town. You know what I mean? Like it's really funny because I think it's kind of about every small town, really.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I mean, this sounds like you're doing this tour of the small town, and I think you're out with Jack Semple, and there's another artist too. I'm trying to remember her name.
Yep, Annette Campagne. Yeah, 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 yeah. So we're doing, yeah, and then there's a band. There's a couple of musicians, a drummer and a bass player, Danny Jones and Brent Jefferson, who are playing, the rhythm section in the back. So
Yes.
it's nice, and we're touring all these rural communities and finding great audiences. Like it's been so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, of course, you're going to be coming to PA in December with your very Prairie Christmas show. I think you're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah.
in the soft seater here in PA. You're going to be at the EA Rawlinson Center for the Arts December 13th. So I would be
Yes.
remiss if I didn't, mention that in passing. I mean, what are the people of Prince Albert, expecting to see? Because I mean, I think this is a show that you've sort of been perfecting and crafting over the last little while, right?
Yeah, you're observant. So we did. I started this show 3 years ago in Regina at the Casino Regina Show Lounge,
Yeah.
and it started as a it wasn't it was just like we just sort of tried it out. We're like, what'll this be? And then we did it for the second year. It got bigger, and then it sold out the room a couple times, and the room's pretty big. It seats like 750 people. So then we thought, well, let's try to take it on the road this year and see what happens. So we're doing Prince Albert and North Battleford and Moose Jaw and Saskatoon. So it seems to be, based on sort of what I'm hearing from these cities, that the idea is it being received well, and people are picking up some tickets. So I'm looking forward to the one in PA, because I haven't played in the Rawlinson Soft Theatre in Prince Albert in, oh my gosh, I bet it's been at least 3 years, maybe. So It's time to get back. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, were you in Rostern too just a few weeks ago?
Yep, we were in Rostron in the Station Arts Centre Theatre there, and we had a really nice show there too.
Yeah. I've just sort of been casually curious, because they seem to be putting up some pretty quality shows just over the last couple of months. So I got to get out there eventually for one of theirs.
Room, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, getting back to these Christmas shows now, I mean, what can we expect to see and hear from Jeffery Straker when you come out to PA?
Well, I mean, what I try to do in those shows, for the Very Prairie Christmas shows, is try to emulate a little bit of what my favorite memories are of Christmas growing up. And I come from a really beautiful family, and so we would all the neighbors would bring room spoons over to my parents' farmhouse and play, songs. A lot of them were Christmas songs at Christmas time, into the wee hours of the night. And there was, there was music, there was singing together, there was sing-alongs, there was some storytelling. So I want it to be a night like that in the theater. Like, I kind of want to make it hopefully make it feel like a big living room, So yeah. We'll see if we can do that. But I think if that room feels like a room where that'll work.
Yeah, it's pretty cozy, and acoustically it usually it sounds pretty top notch, and there's a great staff there that makes sure that people are comfortable and can enjoy a pretty solid atmosphere. I mean, this is a family show, so I think you're going to be well received.
I hope so. And my I don't get to sing a lot with my sister these days, because she's got a full-time job and a daughter, and she's as busy as all get out. But she will be coming for the holiday shows. So it'll be fun to have some sibling harmony in the show as well. And I know there's quite a few people around the province have seen or heard Jill sing with me, particularly on the Telemiracle broadcast. And it's funny, as I tour the show that I'm touring right now, I've lost track of the number of people who said, "Does your sister sing with you anymore?" So I'm like, yeah, she was singing the holiday shows. So that's kind of a fun part too. And her and I get along really well.
You're gonna have a full backing band?
Yeah, there'll be a full band as well. So it should be really nice.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm glad in this day and age that you can get out and do something of this nature. I mean, of course, the holidays can be difficult for some, but I mean, hopefully bringing a little bit of music and Christmas cheer to people, especially in these sort of different times. I mean,
It's dark. I know there's so much negativity in the air right now. We were talking about that sort of backstage and what we've been setting up, etc., on this tour. And so it is nice on this current tour to just be able to pull into a town and for us to sort of forget everything for the couple hours that we do the show, and the audience too. And it's the same for these upcoming holiday shows, to just have a night where people can just get into the theater, turn off their phone and just enjoy some music for, the moments that we're together, and have an experience and feel something, and then go on their merry way. That's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah. there seems to be in this day and age a really sharp divide between, urban and rural, unfortunately. But with a Christmas show, it sort of reminds us that we're all human beings and that we all have a lot more in common than we do otherwise.
Then we don't. Exactly. No, that's hit the nail on the head. That's for sure.
Well, that's what they pay me the big bucks for.
Exactly. I figured so. I didn't want to say. I was waiting for you to say it yourself.
Well, listen, the track is released, I would imagine, on a wide variety of platforms. It's called One Foot on Main Street. But I mean, is there any particular place that we can go maybe to procure the track that might make you a little bit extra coin, Jeffrey?
Well, it's a good question. My jury's out on that, but from what I think I understand, Spotify is probably the place to send people to. So if they go to my Spotify page, which is simply my name, Jeffery Straker, One Foot on Main Street is there under the subheading of singles. And some people are, it's amazing. Like, there's a lot of people who aren't familiar with Spotify, but you don't need to be a subscriber to listen to it. If you subscribe, you get to listen to as much as you want. If you're not a subscriber, you can listen, but they play you some ads in between.
Right.
So, but if people could go take a spin, that would be great.
Awesome. Well, listen, Jeffrey, thanks for joining me here on Down to the River, man. Much appreciated. It's been fun.
Well, thanks for having me by the river, and I feel like I've been baptized.
There you go, man. Right on. Well, you have a good day.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah. Bye-bye.